Hi, my name is Keith Brown. I'm a fly tyer out of Eugene, Oregon. I've been tying for about 20 years now, mostly out of necessity. So I started fly tying, and then it has morphed into more of a passion. Today I will be tying for you a fly I call Ursula. It is basically a steelhead wet fly with a light brown bear hair. The hook, I found this at an estate sale. It's about a size 8 days McNeese Space type fly made by Mustad. I start by attaching your thread to your hook near the eye, just behind where you want your head to be. And since the body of this will be made out of peacock herl, I won't worry too much about evenly spacing my wraps. I just want a good foundation to hold the materials onto the hook. So I'll wrap that all the way back, clip my thread, and I'll prepare my tail section, which is basic hen hackle. I like to pull hackle from both sides of the feather. That way I get an even tail. Match up my tail sections and then place them on the hook just above my tie-in point. And I'll give them a couple wraps, and then I'll check it to make sure that everything is in line over the top of the hook. Then I'll wrap forward and make sure that's nice and secure and I can pull on it and it's not coming out. And then next will come my peacock herl. This is the coveted bronze peacock herl that everybody's looking for all the time, not the bright green stuff. It has a copper reddish hue in it. And placing them on the far side of the hook, just slightly under the center. And you notice there's a big bump here. Like I said before, I'm not particularly concerned with how smooth the underbody is, because when I twist these together and wrap them forward, it'll cover up any imperfections in the underbody. So after I've gotten that nice and secure, I'll pull that out of the way. I don't use a material retainer, I just use my vise to hold it. And next will come my tinsel. And this is a stamped copper tinsel. And you notice it's a little smaller than what you're normally used to seeing on hooks. That's because I don't want the tinsel to take away from the copper body. And I'll secure that right under the hook, leaving a bit extra under so that it doesn't pull out if a fish bites on it. Wrap that forward. I'm going to create a loop just for added security. So now I'm going to twist my herl and thread loop together, trying to get it as tight as possible without snapping the herl, and then begin wrapping it forward. Nice and even turns, trying to keep each herl wrap right next to the one prior to it. Now I'm seeing that this is getting thinner because I'm running out of herl, so I'm going to wrap back, tie this off, and then put in more herl, and do the same thread loop method. And this one will get a slight overlap to cover up this small change in size. Just over the top of that, then I'll go down, make another loop, and then advance my thread. Clip off my excess. And then begin to twist my herl together as tightly as possible. I'll have to move this thread out the way just a little bit. It looks like we're going to need another section of herl. Then under the hook shank, and wrap back. And since this is going to have a fuller throat, I'm going to stop right where the return on the hook eye begins and tie that off. So I'm satisfied with my body now. Clip off my excess. Then I'll wind forward my tinsel. And I want this tightly wound because it tends to slip off when you don't wrap it tight enough. I'll go ahead and tie that off. And just wiggle that to break it. Now it's time for my collar. I have to find a feather that will give me the look that I'm going for. I want something a little longer that'll extend far enough back on the hook. This is just a dyed black hen neck. I'm pulling the feathers back so that they're not in my way when I'm tying them, because if I pin something down, sometimes it makes for an ugly fly. And we're trying to make something that looks pretty nice here. I'll clip some of the excess, not all of it. Then I'll bring the feather up above the hook shank and then stroke it back. And then begin laying the collar around the hook shank. That's the perfect length. We'll wrap that off and create a thread base for our wing. And the wing will be made out of this almost blonde brown bear hair. It looks like it'll be the thickness that I'll need. I'm pulling out the smaller hairs, and then I'll put them into my hair stacker. And I like to hit mine with the toothbrush or something harder. And we'll see how that looks. We may have to pull out some more of the shorter hairs. They're not as even as we'd like, so we'll put them back into the hair stacker. Pulling out split ends at this point. I use 2 hair stackers when I'm stacking hair. One is because there's less static when there's a wider hole, so the fibers flow a little bit better, and then the final stack gets done. The one that's just slightly thinner in diameter, and this one gets actually racked on my tying desk. And there's a split in there, so I'll pull that. So then I'll set them on top of the hook to get a length. And I like it just shorter than the tail. And I'll take a wrap around the hair first for added security. And pull it on top of the shank, making sure everybody's level. That looks good to me. So I'm going to hold it in place and then wrap back. And this is just a temporary wrap so that I can clip my end pieces. And I'll come out. And give a nice tight wrap on the first wrap. Make sure it's center. clip all the little tiny stray hairs. Build up a nice head and a whip finish. I like to use my fingers. That way I can see that I'm laying everything right down next to one another. Don't tear. And in order to keep the integrity of the head shape, I always tilt it up so that the head glue tilts back with the head. And I'll let that dry. And that is Ursula. And I don't call it really invention. There are patterns that we follow, which is basically a tail, a body, a rib, a hackle, and a wing. That's the pattern. Well, the recipe is different than the pattern. It is the actual materials that you use. So this recipe, which follows a pattern, has a black tail, peacock body, copper rib, black throat, and a light brown, almost tan wing.
Shall I see thy bright shores in the sunlight, the heather of hills and the rising of morn, but all in gracie mist grows east in the morning to run the wild hills of the Coollands abroad. Far away seaward, the green hills are lovely, where runs the hill water